We have some big stories, big topics, and big discussions to have in today's latest news video, and I'm really excited to tackle things, so I'm not going to waste time with the intro. You guys, you know what to do already. If you like the video, if you want to support the channel, hit that like button. Obviously, share your thoughts and opinions, and my friends, without wasting any more time. Let's start with the first story, and Nicolas Jackson speaks out. You don't know football. He's not holding back today. I read a very interesting interview from the Evening Standard, and it seems like Nicolas Jackson has had enough of the slander, the criticism, and he's speaking out today. He told his doubters, you don't know football. I'll be breaking down the key points, but here's exactly what Nico said. As he said, it is okay. It is not what I was going for, though. It is my first season, so I am happy, although everybody is talking ish. I'm very happy. I don't care what people say. It is just people who don't know about football. I will just continue to play more games, score more goals for the team. I should have scored more because I have missed some chances. The Premier League is different from La Liga, where I came from. I am trying to adapt myself. It is not an excuse. I'm trying to continue to work harder and to listen to people. Not the people who don't know football. I listen to the coach that knows more football, and I try to improve myself. To continue on, Nico discussed a little bit the pressures about being on number 9, and he reveals that Pochettino is extremely supportive. Of course, as he says, Poch has worked with a lot of young players. He motivates me every single day. He has seen players worse than me who are now doing better in their long-term careers. He referenced 2 infamous players in Mohamed Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, who famously went on to become 2 of the best players in the league, but absolutely failed at this football club. And as he says, De Bruyne was here, Salah was here, they struggled here and are now big players. They didn't listen to people who don't know football. And Pochettino keeps telling me that. He knows football, they don't know football, so I don't listen to them. And the fact that he's used this they don't know football bar like at least 5 or 10 times in this interview speaks a lot about the frustration he must be feeling. And listen, I'm more than fine with Nico Jackson speaking his truth and saying what he really feels. Listen, I don't want these sanitized conversations. I want real stuff from my players, yeah? I'm bored of that sanitized stuff. In other sports like the NBA and all these other sports, the players speak their truths all the time. So I feel like us football fans have to grow up and stop being like these emotional babies sometimes. But outside of that, I think Nico Jackson has every right to say what he has to say. Basically, he only cares what Pochettino has to say about his development, and that's the only criticism that he cares about. And I think he's absolutely right, because I'm sorry, I'm not understanding this recent hyper-criticism, hyper-focus around Nico Jackson, where everyone's fooled themselves into thinking that they have coaching badges, that they know what they're talking about in terms of, you know, what makes a player good, what makes a player bad. I feel like social media is overestimating people's abilities to understand the game. Humble yourself a bit. Listen, I don't know everything. This is why I don't come with like crazy points and opinions. But I just find it very ironic that, you know, most of the criticism placed around Nico Jackson isn't even landing, isn't even correct. Like, I see this thing where, you know, a lot of fans do this thing where once they've told themselves something about a player, they're not very fluid. You know, they hold on to that point forever and they only zero in on what they want to look for every single time. I see that non-stop. And, you know, in my video I did in what we learned against Sheffield United, I showed 2 prime examples of Nico Jackson timing his run between defences perfectly and not being found or spotted by his teammates. You know, this is also another issue that many Chelsea strikers have suffered with over the years, where we love signing these strikers that want to be receiving balls in behind and receiving quick service, yet we aren't supplementing these guys quickly enough. You know, to only solely blame Nicolas Jackson for every action that doesn't lead towards a goal is hyper-criticism. It's not correct, and it looks a bit silly. And you create this narrative where, you know, we throw all our hopes and expectations unrealistically on the striker to single-handedly solve every in-game situation. And it just doesn't make sense, because here's how I see things, yeah? Let's say we had peak Cavani playing for us right now, and Cavani has one of the all-time greatest movements off the ball for any striker from any generation, in my opinion. How many goals do you think he'd have right now if he was playing for us? Would he have 15 or 20 goals for us right now? Are we saying that we give our strikers perfect, inch perfect service week in, week out on a daily basis, that we can single-handedly point to the striker for laying the team down? Absolutely not. So if Cavani isn't doing unrealistic things like that, why are we placing these unrealistic, stupidly high standards on a young striker who is still learning his craft, who's showing that he wants to learn, he's humble to learn, he wants to work harder? We've seen the interviews and he's showing already that there's signs of progress. I mean, 7 goals already in the league? You know, we signed strikers in previous seasons that were supposed to make us title contenders. Was Nicolas Jackson signed to make us a title contender this season? Absolutely not. So it's like focusing on the negatives, especially when you don't even know the details behind what makes a good run or not. When you're only focusing on the end result and you're not focusing on the prior actions, I don't understand why he has to take the brunt of things. And it's the same thing we did with Tammy Abraham. You're dismissing the ability to put the goals in the back of the net over silly high standards that you shouldn't be expecting from 22-year-olds. I mean, I've said this for years. If a lot of people saw Didier Drogba at 22 or Diego Costa or these guys at their formative years, you would hate them. You would think they were never going to make it. They can't do anything. And this is why I get really frustrated with the discourse around football sometimes. It's so black, it's so white, there's no nuance, there's no looking towards the past, and it's so reactionary, and it just seems a bit silly at times. I'm sorry. So listen, for me, I think the criticism has to kind of relax a bit. I think we have to realize this. Listen, we all know that we bought young players for the future. So that comes with the expectation that you need to have patience for these guys to develop and grow. So I don't understand why that applies to your Caicedos and your Enzos or certain players, but not just like evenly throughout the team. It doesn't make sense for me. And I think sometimes this fan base, is not helpful towards the players at times, in my opinion. But listen, for me, as you guys can tell, I think Nico Jackson, say what you have to say, man. I think he's absolutely right. They're my thoughts and opinions, though. I like to give them out every now and then. Obviously, share yours. How do you feel about the interview? And moving on to another interesting, controversial discussion, and we discuss Conor Gallagher and his future here, because it does seem very likely that this club is open to a sale in the January window. Obviously, Conor has 18 months left on his contract. Of course, he's not really finding any agreements now with contract negotiation talks. And Pochettino obviously spoke out, and here's what he had to say in a recent press conference. As he says, I don't need to talk too much because it's not my decision. He is in the starting 11 in nearly all the games and is one of the captains. For me, he is the type of player the club needs to have. And obviously, it is understood that Gallagher has yet to start negotiations over a new contract. So I think it's facts. I mean, the guy is playing 90 minutes week in, week out. Pochettino is talking in like coded language, in the sense of like, listen, if Conor does go, it's got nothing to do with me. I don't take responsibility for this. With my actions, you're seeing how much I value and need this guy. But if he goes and things happen to our season, don't blame me for this. It's outside my decision making, and that makes sense. I think if I saw things in percentages, I'd say 25% definitely falls on Conor Gallagher. Obviously, he's not agreed to signing this new 8-year contract that was presented to him, but I'm sorry, I understand why. I mean, he's like just turned 25 years old. He's not even reached the peak of his footballing prowess right now. And if you agree to signing this long-term deal, it means that you have no bargaining negotiation powers for the next 8 years. You know, you're going to be in your early 30s by the time the contract ends, and it's very unlikely you'll be signing another contract where you can earn more money from that. And I'm sorry, if you guys feel like players shouldn't do that, I'm gonna have to say, grow up, for God's sake. Like, we're talking about players playing for the best clubs in the world, in the top leagues. This is part of the game. We can't pick and choose when it matters. It applies evenly to every single player. They have every right to want to safeguard and maximize their career earnings. Everyone in the world does that. So sorry. If you think otherwise, you have to grow up. You have to grow up. But to continue on though, for the other 75%, it purely comes down to the sporting directors. Now, I've had my observations and thoughts about them now for the past 18 months. I think I cynically feel like, listen, we've given the keys of our club to guys that have no attachment, to guys who aren't even the first choice sporting directors that we originally targeted to spearhead this project, to spearhead this transition in the football club right now, you know, they have a lot of power to make a lot of long-lasting decisions at this football club. And obviously, naturally, we're all a bit worried now. And we're thinking, you know, are they necessarily making the right decisions for what's best for the team right now? You guys have your thoughts and opinions around that. In my opinion, I feel like the sporting directors offer these unrealistic contracts because they know most of the English guys or Prem football players won't accept them. And for them, it's like, okay, you know, we tried our best, you know, they didn't want to accept it. What can we do? We move on. It's not our fault. And I've seen them use this strategy a few times now, to be honest with you. But obviously, the only Cobham guys still here, realistically, will be like Colwell, Reece James, and everyone else has been discarded and sold on. Of course, these guys bring in maximum profit. These players bring in the most interest because clubs want to sign them on permanent deals. And most of the stars that we buy that don't live up to the hype, they leave on loan or they leave for dramatically less than the money we pay to sign them to begin with. So Cobham has been saving our asses so much, and let's hope that we aren't taking it for granted now and decisions have to be on point. I mean, Poch said this after our win against Sheffield United. You know, he's important because he has Chelsea's values. He's a product that came from the academy. He has the identity of the club. He loves the club and is very committed. You can see on the pitch, he runs, he plays, he fights. He gives everything to try to win. He is a really important player, a type of player every coaching staff wants to have in the team, and it's absolute facts. You need these guys in your squad. You need these guys in your team. I mean, Conor's producing league standard numbers in defensive actions. How can you overlook that? How can you ignore that? Now, part of me sees it like this here, and I've said this before. If Conor does go, I'm assuming the plan may be to have Caicedo play the Gallagher role as Lavia returns back to the team, and Lavia will be the one at the base of midfield. That's how I see things going. I think that could be the play and the plan. Is that a lot of expectation and pressure on Lavia, who's not had a pre-season, who's going to need a lot more time? Potentially. Could you maybe ease that integration process over 1 or 2 seasons? I think you probably could. And for all the money we're looking to generate in January, who are these elite options that we have, our best hopes of signing? I'm not too sure. If Conor does go, could we see the return of Andre Santos returning back to the squad? I think that could be a possibility. But I just don't like how undervalued this guy's been. Now, is he Frank Lampard? Is he Michael Essien or something like that? Absolutely not. But for God's sake, why is it for certain players we have to apply the highest possible standards to them? And we're not doing that to the guys that came for record-breaking money. If I want to play that game, which I don't even agree with. I don't even agree with these types of discussions, to be fair with you. But it's just like, I'm sorry. You know, every great team, I look at Valverde at Madrid. I look at what Hargreaves did for Bayern Munich. I look at Vidal, his times at Barca, at Bayern, at Juventus. You know what I mean? These players matter in a squad. These are the players that do all the work that gets appreciated by their teammates. They enhance the stars in their team. So when people literally show no sense of understanding and dismiss players like Gallagher just like that, you're just telling me that you don't know ball as much and have a bit of an open mind and an opinion, yeah? You know, it's too small how you're seeing things. These players have always mattered. Conor is the glue in our team. He's a constant support for every teammate across the field. Look at the ground he covers per game, the pressures, the tackles, the recoveries. For God's sake, you know, he drives us up the field. You know, you can't be doing this by accident. You can't be fluking this. You have to be good. But for some reason, you know, we only appreciate these Valverdes, we only appreciate these Vidals and all these man if a team's winning, because people can pretend they know more about ball than they actually do. I know I'm sounding very cynical in this video today, but my guys, I really can't help it. I think it doesn't make sense to let go of your key player of the season right now. And you're telling me there's going to be instant upside after a sell? I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And I think if you have plans to slowly phase out certain guys, you don't do it so aggressively, not when he matters so much for the manager. So it's absolutely stupid in my opinion. So listen, that's the latest around Conor Gallagher. Let's end things with the final story. We have a quick one. Is Wonderkid FC set to grow? Who knows with this football club? But as reported by Fabrizio Romano, us and Barcelona have made contact to be informed on the situation of Argentinian Wonderkid in Claudio Echeverri. Now, this guy had an unreal under-17 World Cup. 5 goals, hat-trick against Brazil, and currently he has a 25 million release clause, which can rise to 30 million euros, of course, as his contract gets near its end. So River Plate know the type of talent they have. He's getting first in opportunities for them. I think he's played 5 or 6 games. You guys will see one of his games, I think, for River Plate during the season. And listen, he looks like a phenomenal talent. And I think it was best said by Xavi, actually. Obviously, Barca showing a ton of interest. They'd love to sign him. Of course, FFP limitations are stopping them from securing him right now. And that has been the main thing. But as Xavi said in a recent press conference, listen, he's a difference maker. But it's something for our scouts in the scouting department to have to figure out. And I think that's correct. I think every super club, every big team has at least 1 to 3 difference makers. You need them. These different makers matter when the game's going against you. You know, you're not going to play your perfect football week in, week out throughout the entirety of a season. It don't work like that. You need those difference makers. I think this is why I was so annoyed that we didn't sign Kudus, because I felt like we don't have that profile in the team. I think Echeverri is one of these talents by far. I mean, the guy has supreme confidence in his ball carrying and his dribbling skills, incredible low center of gravity and body balance, and the change of direction at pace on the fly. He does this with ease. You know, this is what makes him a difference maker. And, you know, to have this confidence at 17 years old playing like this is crazy. But I think for me, though, you know, can we be in a situation where we can have, let's say, 3 Kendry Paez level talents? I mean, him, for example, we're looking at Esteval Willian from Palmeiras and Kendry. Like, can they all coexist? Are we hedging our bets on signing these guys young and then expecting these teams to duke it out to become number 1? I hope that's not the plan. I've seen this nonsense a million times. It's cost us in the arse long term. How often? It doesn't make sense. And for me, listen, we can't sign everyone. And I feel like, for me, the litmus test is seeing how we treat Kendry Paez. Because this guy, what he's producing right now, if Madrid had him, if Barca had him, or if other clubs had him, there's a lot more confidence I have in terms of how he gets developed and used. For my club right now, I don't have that same confidence yet because I haven't seen it over the years. We've been in this situation a million times before and we haven't necessarily gone right to the end and taken a young talent's game to the next level. I hope we get it right with Kendry. That's the confidence I need to see, my friends. So on that note, that is the end for today's video. There is going to be a preview coming out later today, and watch yesterday's What We Learned video on Sheffield United. And my friends, on that note, I'm Nini FC. This is BlueLionsTV. I'll see you guys later with some more videos. Cool.